All right, let's dive in. Today, we're cracking the code on the wild world of startups. We're going to build you the essential glossary for anyone who's ever had a big idea or just wants to finally understand what all the tech buzz is actually about. Let's do it.
You know that feeling, right? You're listening to someone talk about their new venture, and suddenly they're talking about pivots, runways, and burn rates, and you're just lost. It's like you need a secret decoder ring just to keep up. Well, for the next 5 minutes, we're going to be that decoder ring. We're going to walk through the entire journey of a startup, from that first light bulb moment all the way to a massive success, breaking down the key terms as we go.
So here's the game plan. We've got 4 stages. We'll start with the spark, turning an idea into something real. Then we'll talk about the fuel. Yep, that's the money. After that, the climb, which is all about growing smart. And we'll finish at the summit, the big finale.
All right, let's kick things off at the very beginning, the spark. Every huge company you know started right here with just a simple what-if idea.
But an idea isn't enough, right? It's a whole process. It starts with something called ideation. Then you build what's called an MVP. After that, you beta test it. And, depending on what happens, you might need to pivot. Let's unpack what all that means.
First up, ideation. Look, this sounds kind of formal, but it's really not just about having a cool thought in the shower. It's the process of structured brainstorming, of taking that raw concept and actually shaping it into a real plan.
And that plan leads you to your MVP, or minimum viable product. And the key word here is minimum. This is not the final bells and whistles version. It's the most basic, bare-bones version of your product that does just one thing really well. Its whole purpose is to get it into the hands of real people so you can learn fast.
And how do you learn? Through a beta test. This is where you hand your MVP over to a small group of actual potential customers. It's your product's first taste of the real world. And the honest, brutal feedback you get here, it's absolutely priceless.
So what if that feedback tells you that your brilliant idea isn't so brilliant after all? Well, that's when you pivot. And I gotta stress this, a pivot is not a failure. It's actually one of the smartest things a startup can do. It means you were humble enough to listen to your users and brave enough to change direction.
Okay, so your idea is solid. You've even got some early fans. Now what? Well, now you need the fuel to make this thing fly. Let's talk about the money. Funding usually happens in stages. At first, you might be bootstrapped. That just means you're using your own savings. Then you might find an angel investor. From there, you raise a seed round, which is the first official chunk of cash. And that gets you ready for the big leagues, venture capital firms or VCs.
Now, when you're raising money, you're going to hear 2 terms constantly, pre-money and post-money valuation. Let's make this super simple. Imagine your company is worth $4 million. That's your pre-money valuation. If an investor gives you $1 million, your company's new value, the post-money valuation, is $5 million. It's that simple, but it's critical because it determines how much of the company they own.
Which brings us to a tricky one, dilution. Think of your company like a pizza. When you take money from an investor, you give them a slice. That means your slice and everyone else's gets a tiny bit smaller. That's dilution. But here's the thing. That investor's money is the capital you need to turn your small pizza into a giant one. So you might own a smaller percentage, but it's a percentage of something way, way bigger.
All right, the tank is full of cash. Now comes the hard part, the climb. This is all about taking that investment and using it to grow like crazy, but in a smart, sustainable way.
And to know if you're growing smart, it all comes down to a tug of war between 2 numbers. First is your CAC, your customer acquisition cost. How much does it cost in marketing and sales to get one new person to sign up? Then you've got your LTV, the lifetime value. How much money will you make from that person over time? And the golden rule is simple. Your LTV has to be bigger than your CAC, period.
And that leads us to the magic word that every investor wants to hear, scalability. A scalable business is one that can add 10 or 100 or 1,000,000 new customers without its costs going through the roof. This is the secret sauce. It's what allows your revenue to shoot for the moon while your costs stay on the launch pad.
So after all that building, funding, and climbing, you finally reach the summit. This is the end game. This is where all the risk and all the sleepless nights hopefully pay off.
And at the top, there are usually 2 main paths. The first is an acquisition, where a bigger company comes along and just buys you. The second, and much rarer path, is an IPO, or initial public offering. That's when your company goes public and anyone can buy its shares on the stock market.
Both of these are known as an exit event. And believe me, this is the moment every founder, every early employee, and every investor dreams about. It's the finish line. It's when all that ownership on paper turns into actual money and everyone gets to see a real return on their investment of time and capital.
So let's do a super quick recap of your new founder's lexicon, okay? You start with an MVP to build, measure, and learn. You get seed funding to fuel the journey. You accept some dilution to trade ownership for growth. You scale by making sure your LTV is way bigger than your CAC. And it all leads to an exit where you finally realize the incredible value you've created.
And that's it. You now have the foundational vocabulary from the first little spark all the way to the summit. You officially speak the language. So the only real question left is, what are you going to build?